Hello and welcome to Rolling with Two. I'm Will, and with me as always is the one who travels around in a caravan playing with stones.
Sarah.
That's a weird one. And today we're doing a two-player perspective and accessibility for Everstone, Discovering Ignis. If you're curious about our opinion, check out our other video, Rolling with Reviews, Everstone, Discovering Ignis. Sarah, tell us about this game.
All right. In Everstone, you travel the land looking for ancient relics to repair and harvesting the resources needed to do so. Relics can be sold for powerful effects or equipped to your caravan to enhance the actions that you do in the game. Whoever reaches 10 reputation first triggers the end of the game, and at the end of that round, whoever has the most reputation wins. Okay, Will, so how's the game change for two players?
So there's a number of setup things for two players. So for example, there are 3 influence tracks corresponding to the stone colors of blue, yellow, and red. There are empty spots that you'll use another player or third player's color and marker and use those influence and basically fill in those spots. Basically, it kind of shortens those tracks. In essence. If you would land on that spot, you skip to the next spot. Then the where you start on the reputation track, and that's going to be how the timer of the game works, because it's once you get to 10 points, you start at reputation, I think 1 for a two-player.
So. It's different for every player.
Yes, you start higher up the more players you have.
Right.
Additionally, there are villager tiles that basically are spots on the board. There's going to be one that's printed on the board, and then villager tiles, and the number of village. I thought they were called villager.
They're called village. It's a village that you're traveling to, not... Well, I mean, I guess there's people there.
I would hope so. Otherwise, you're just showing up to empty houses. But the village tiles, the number of them that are used is dependent on the player count. 4 for a two-player game, and the more players you use.
That is accurate. I think that's everything that changes. Yep, because there's no bot otherwise for the game.
No Nana Villager?
No Nana Villager.
You don't go to Nana Village?
I don't, but maybe you do.
This is why I win so much.
All right, so issues at the two-player count, really it's going to come down to skill level. So if you have a high difference in skill level between the two players, it's going to be felt more acutely because this is a race to the finish game. So someone who is more skilled and faster at playing is, well, going to get the game done sooner.
Yes, and each action is designed to be very, very meaningful. So, yeah, choose the wrong thing at the wrong time, and it really, you feel it down the road.
Right. So that's going to be the major thing. We do think that there's merchant skills, and using those could potentially help someone who's less skilled, because it can give them like a benefit. So it's possible if you want to mix those up where the more skilled person doesn't get one, but that's just like a house rule. Or gets
the less powerful one.
Or get a less powerful one or something to that effect. But those could potentially help equalize a little.
A little offsetting.
Yeah. Otherwise, we feel it's really well balanced for two players. So there's nothing really, too bad about the game itself. It's more about the player skills. So, yeah.
So, accessibility then.
Accessibility. So, the rules, it's just, there's a lot of little nuances, and a lot of them are just not really clearly explained. Like, especially talking about those merchant skills, they're shown in the rule book, but they're not explained. And there's a lot of times where there's some nuances about those, and we had some issues with one in particular. And thankfully, we posted on Board Game Geek, and the designer is very active there, and so he was responding right away. So if you have questions, go there. He's going to be working on a, what do you call it? An appendix. Yeah, appendix, and posting it. So hopefully, maybe you'll be lucky by the time you watch this video, that'll be already available. And it'll have card clarification as well as merchant skill clarification. But for the rule book that comes in the box, it unfortunately just doesn't address everything.
Yeah, and sometimes remembering small little details can trip you up. Like there's a particular card that lets you store more resources. It starts up on your workshop and you have the ability to put it down. And I was telling Sarah, well, you can only do that during the repair action by paying this much. And she's like, no, you could just do it whenever. And like, no, it's only a repair. Sure enough, she had to look through the rules, found it in this like little aside, and it's not even mentioned on the player board.
Yeah, it's not mentioned on the player board because this is one I guess we'll talk about right now. Is the iconography is also not the most intuitive. So I had to look up a lot of the iconography, and when it comes to your player board, there's iconography on there that is not explained in the rule book anywhere. But once it's one of those things, once you understand it, then you get it. But like, you know what I mean? Is like once you know how that action works, then you can read the iconography of how that action works.
Yeah. Oh, that's how it's supposed to remind me that this is how this thing is, even though it doesn't show anywhere in the rules. I mean, it spelled it out, but it didn't show, and here's its icon.
Right.
Type of thing.
Exactly. So like we often forgot to take the village tile off at once you're done activating it and swapping it around. Yes, the reminder text is there on the explore action, but it's not explained anywhere. But once you understand that's what you need to do, then it makes sense. So again, it's just not the most intuitive iconography. Not all of it's really well explained. So hopefully this appendix will really help with that.
Well, speaking of icons, sometimes the icons weren't all that visible.
Yeah, so there's issues where there are times where there's brown icons on a brown background. And that's just kind of hard to see. So on the board, when you're trying to set up for player count to see how many village tiles go on, well, there's one that's brown on green, but because of the way the artsy background of the board is, one of them is brown on brown. So that wasn't very helpful. Also, on all the cards, there is a icon for what action type it is. And this is independent of some of the other things, like whether it goes in one of the 4 columns, but it's the action type. Instead of the color, it does give an icon, but it is brown on brown. And that's not easy to see if you're not in good lighting.
And still going on icons, sometimes there's inconsistencies.
Yeah.
For example, when you're putting out an influence, well, they have an icon for that. They also have a different icon that's similar to the first one that's for the same action.
Yeah, they decided because the bigger icon that's more complex is for when they could print it larger. But when it needed to be printed smaller, they had to reduce it.
And its complexity.
Its complexity, so it's still visible. But then they should have just used that icon larger to keep it consistent.
Yeah.
And also talking about consistency, there's the, what was it?
It's the influence bonus versus location bonus. They use those 2 different words. Technically, it's the same thing. It's just how that bonus is accessed.
Yeah.
So they should have just chosen one of them and explained how it's accessed.
And it's just activated 2 different ways rather than having 2 different names for the same thing. It's printed on the board, you get this bonus. When your influence token is on there, you get that reward when someone goes there. But then there's also a point where you go there.
And if you're bumping somebody, you have to pay them that location bonus.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
But they called it 2 different things.
Right. Also, the resources are blue, yellow, red, and then a multi-gem. Most of the time there is a symbol on this that differentiates them, but sometimes it's printed so small you can't see that little icon on the middle of the little gem. So there might be points where colorblind issues come up. And especially when you get to the arrows that represent that, there's no icon that differentiates blue, yellow, red, arrow, and multi. So these might become issues where hopefully you're okay with asking someone else around the table to clarify if you can't see the difference there. So it's like they tried but didn't quite get it everywhere to be colorblind friendly. Or just, and some of these things are just basic vision friendly, like the player caravans. All the caravans are the same shape, but they did put an icon, but it's tiny on the side of the caravan. So on your influence markers, it's a circle that's kind of big. Those are clear icons so that when you're on influence tracks and the reputation track, you can tell yours apart from somebody else's. But when they put it on the caravan side, it's tiny. And so if your caravan color is at all close to someone else's due to your color vision deficiency, it's just not going to be helpful because you'll have to pick it up to see if it's yours because that icon is just so small on it.
Yeah, I thought it was also a little bit difficult with, so there's caravan upgrade cards, and one side it can go anywhere. It can go in any of the 4 action spots in your caravan. But the other side can only go in one of the specific spots, and the best way to identify it is like the background.
Yeah, so the background is a rug, which corresponds to the rug for that action, except it's not the main action. It's the sub-action, which could be covered up by a card in your workshop. So then you have to start moving all the cards in your workshop to find out which rug it corresponds with. They should have just said the action name.
Yeah, fortunately, the rugs are unique.
They are unique.
When you can see them.
Right.
It's just, it's a little sub thing that you have to change.
It's one of those things we never like using a pattern to identify something. The word is almost always 100% better.
Yeah.
Or a very clear, unique icon.
And the funny thing is, they have words specifically
and they
for
have
these.
icons too.
Yeah, they say barter, explore, harvest, and repair.
And there are icons for each one of those 4 things. And they hardly use those icons throughout the game. Instead, they're like, let's put the rug. And now, granted, I will say, if you read what it does, oftentimes you can say, like if it says you can explore twice, okay, well that goes above the explore action because that's where you're going to be exploring.
Yeah.
But yeah,
having to go through extra translation does slow down the mental picking up of, oh, I know what this is.
Yeah.
I know what this does.
Yeah, exactly. Let me see if there's anything else. Okay, so the cards, there's a lot going on in this game already. The cards are multi-use. You can build them to put, under an action to enhance that action. You can build them to, not throw it away, but sell it to get a different benefit that's immediate. You can discard it for another minor little action. I think those are the 3 main things, right?
Well, they also still have a name and a picture.
Well, they have a name and a picture and a cost.
And they also have a number so they can identify them. There's just a lot on these cards.
So it can cause some analysis paralysis if you're trying to absorb all the information that's on this card all at once.
And the back of the cards have discovery requirements and a free tool.
Thankfully, if you're looking at the card face because it's in your hand, or
you no longer need to look at the back.
Yeah, or on your player board, then you don't have to worry about the back. But just the front of it, just even having those 3 choices of, do I discard the card, do I sell the card, or do I build the card to enhance the action, that can cause analysis paralysis. So just remember, there's some cognitive challenges here with everything going on.
Yeah, what do you feel like you want to be doing? Focus on that, kind of ignore the rest.
Yeah.
And kind of play it a little loosey-goosey, and you'll be fine. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck there, turn 1. I don't know what to do.
And there's a small mobility. I would already say there's some mobility challenge with tucking cards under the top and bottom. Generally speaking, once you get things in place, you're not going to move them too often. There isn't a way to move them, but thankfully not too often. But what is a mobility challenge is at the start of the game, on your resource board, there are 5 spots at the bottom that you have to stack 3 discs on top. I don't know about anybody else, but I was constantly knocking into those. Now, you do take them off over the course of the game and put them out across the board and cards and things. So it does go down. But at the very beginning of the game, for the first several rounds, you have to be very careful not to knock them off, especially since you're going to be putting your resource gems in the spots above them. So I just found trying to put my resource gems in, my hand would or sleeve would knock into those discs and knock them off. I just kind of wish...
since there's 5 pillars, they help then knock into the other pillars.
I wish it had been flipped where those discs were at the top and the resources were at the bottom, because then you interact with the resources a lot more than you do those discs, and you're then less likely to knock them off. Well, I guess you could just turn the whole thing upside down.
Yeah, and I think the only thing is like the second to last stack would reveal a reputation upside down.
Yeah, you still have to make sure you take the discs off in the correct order.
Yeah. But that's about
That's
it.
true. You could just flip it around and turn it up. I'll do that next time we play. I guess
Okay.
that's an easy solution for that one. Okay, that's a lot. That's all the issues we found. What it does right for colorblind accessibility, the relic cost icons are always in the same order.
Blue, yellow, red, and then your
Multi.
choice. And then if it does need a influence after that.
Yes.
Always in that order.
And so if it's missing one, then that's just not there. But if it needs a blue, a yellow, and then one of your choice, well, then the red is just not there, but the others are all in the same spots. So that's really good. Also, as much as there's a cognitive overload, once you actually get to playing, the structure of how you resolve an action just really simplifies things.
Top to bottom. So you'll always look, do you have a caravan upgrade? Because that's going to be tucked at the top. So that's going to be resolved first. Then it's your main action. Then you have your support action if it's uncovered. Or if it's covered, you don't even have to worry about it.
You can't see it, you can't do it.
Then you move down and go top to bottom for any relics that you've built that went underneath that action. And following that pattern, every action really helps. And like, okay, I don't have to, well, it would help if I could resolve this thing, then this thing, then that thing.
Right.
Which one did I resolve again? No, you don't have that problem. It's just top to bottom.
So we were talking about a lot of cognitive challenges with the game, but at least that, once you get through the rules and understanding how things work, that really helps keep the flow of the game going really smoothly. And also in the end, it is mostly open information. Your goal cards are
Personal goals.
supposed to be kept secret, but again, with Will's vision, I read them to him. I don't think there was really that many opportunities where I could stop you. Like there was
No.
a point where you did an action that slowed me down.
The board itself has global goals
Right.
that work similar to personal goals. And those are always open. You always know what they are.
Right.
So it didn't really make a whole lot of difference whether or not we played the personal goals face up or face
Yeah,
down.
and some of them are like discard 3 cards in one turn. There's nothing Will can do to stop me from doing that.
Except saying, no, don't do that. Oh.
Yeah,
That
that's
didn't
it.
work.
That didn't work. All right, conclusion.
For 2 players, would you recommend?
I think so. I think it might actually be an easier player count to learn the game at because this is turn-based, right? Yeah, this is a turn-based game.
Yep.
So the more players you have, the longer the game is going to go. And the board will get busier the more players there are. Now, granted, you also might have more player interaction, so there might be some positives there, but I think 2 players is a really good spot too.
Yeah, I found every single action I played was always interesting. There was never a dull turn, so I was always looking forward to my next turn. And 2 players is just when you're going to get to your next turn sooner.
Exactly. It's just going to be the fastest game played. Does this? Yeah, this does have solo rules, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
So you could play it solo.
So 2 players, definitely. Accessibility.
This is going to be a mixed bag. The rules are going to be very challenging, and there's going to be some minor colorblind issues. If you don't have other people at the table you feel comfortable asking. Like Will and I have a very unique dynamic that I have to remember that not everybody is as comfortable asking somebody for constant help. I mean, again, we're married. Will constantly needs my help in daily life. Of course, I also need his help in daily life. So we're more comfortable just helping each other all the time. So hopefully you have people that you can play with where, because those arrows, if you're having any trouble with those colors, there's no way to tell them apart.
Right.
There's no icon or anything. So there's going to be some issues there.
Yes. Accessibility, we did go over fairly in minute detail a lot of stuff. And I think the reason why we did is because we have so much respect for the game.
Yeah, we really want more people to be able to play this game.
Yeah, so we just want to make sure that you know every little thing that you could be getting into that would trip you up.
Right.
Trying to enjoy this game, because I definitely think it is worth working through accessibility. I mean, that's a little bit of a spoiler
for our review.
But I do think that it is worth working through any accessibility issues.
Yes.
So just know what they are, see if you can, and if so, I definitely recommend. I wouldn't want accessibility to hold you up.
Agreed.
All right, and that'll do it for us. And Sarah,
Yes.
what did you discover at Ignis?
I discovered a lot of cool relics, some which felt very retro, like a old, GameCube looking console, and I think there was a stuffed animal, but there were also some really weird, more fantastical, like this weird contraption that had jars and vials and like a spinny thingy. It was really cool looking. So I just didn't know you could repair a stuffed animal with crystals, but
yes,
hey,
that's
awesome.
that's what I discovered. You bedazzle them.
You bedazzle. See, you wanted to be able to bedazzle more games.
That was in a different, that was a different game. But this one we can bedazzle. And why would you ever roll with just one when you can be
rolling with two?
If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with Two, that's TWO. We're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Discord, we have a channel on Tabletop Express. Check the show notes for the invite link.
If you have time, check out the other content Nanaman has found for you, because remember, he's rolling with you.